My Hero Academia chapter 355. What will happen to All For One now that his mask is destroyed? Is he finally forced to transform into the ultimate demon lord? And what happened to the All For One quirk? Did our theory come true that Star and Stripe managed to change the All For One quirk? Will this have an effect on the transformation with Shigaraki? Also, only a small percentage of the people who watch our videos are actually subscribed, so if you end up liking this video, consider subscribing. Please enjoy this video. Let's go! The new My Hero Academia chapter begins with Endeavor lying wounded on the ground after being hit by All For One's attack. The narrator text says that the confrontation with All For One is reaching its climax, so everything that happens from now on could escalate very quickly, especially considering that at the end of this chapter they managed to destroy the mask of All For One. But more about that at the end of this video. Endeavor's thoughts are still with his two sons, Shota and Toya, wondering if they are okay. His facial expression alone shows how much the situation hurts him. Now more than ever we can see how much he truly loves Toya. No matter what he has done or what he has become, he will forever be his son. He realizes that it is not the time and place to be weak and reminds himself that all of this, everything that has happened up to now, and even these wounds are all his fault, and therefore he must take responsibility. He has to win this war. It is interesting how much Horikoshi emphasizes Toya again and again in this final story arc, almost in every chapter without Toya playing any active role at all. This shows once again that Toya will become very important in this final arc. Even though it looks like he has already been defeated, I think that should be clear by now. For more context, you can check out our latest theory on Toya becoming the vessel for All For One after you finish this review. The link is in the comments. Location change back to the fight against All For One. We see Hawks, Tokiyami and Jiro flying as they fight All For One together. Hawks confirms that Endeavor has not suffered any fatal injuries and will be back soon. They just have to hang in there until then. After a short discussion with Tokiyami, all three heroes agree and prepare their attack to destroy the mask of All For One as it was planned from the beginning. And then All For One mentions something very interesting. He said that he doesn't have time to play around anymore because he can't afford anything to happen to his other self. With that, he was obviously referring to Shigaraki, and since All For One is basically living in two bodies at the same time, his own and also Shigaraki's, he should know Tamura's situation. So maybe he sees that Shigaraki is in trouble and needs to make sure nothing happens to him before the transformation is complete. Maybe he also knows that Deku is currently on his way to Shigaraki, and before he gets there, All For One has to make sure that he finds his way there too. Here, however, we must keep in mind that regardless of the original plan to use Shigaraki to become the Demon Lord, it doesn't necessarily look like Shigaraki will be the one All For One will use for his transformation. Of course, Shigaraki is still the main candidate for this transformation, but it's still possible for the plot to go in a different direction because Toya suddenly becomes so important, especially in the context of All For One, with all the secrets that have been revealed about him and also all the new questions that have arisen, such as what All For One did to Toya's body when he was in a coma for 3 years, or what the light on his chest was all about, why it was suddenly revealed that Toya is actually one of the seeds that All For One can use for his transformation in case something goes wrong with Shigaraki, or also how Toya managed to escape death again and again. First he should have died already as a child and yet he survived. Then he had only 1 month to live but managed to live on for several years. And now he even carried out an attack where we saw that his bones and muscles literally disintegrated. But then he suddenly healed again. Very strange. We know that Dr. Garaki can duplicate quirks and that Shigaraki has a super regeneration quirk, so maybe Toya also has such a quirk implanted. The biggest clue to Toya's relevance, however, is the way All For One and Endeavor talk about Toya. Shigaraki, on the other hand, is getting further and further away from what he was supposed to be. He begins to hate All For One because he has understood that he is only using him for his own purpose. He even fights again and again in the world of All For One against All For One, who keeps trying to gain control over Shigaraki's body. Also, we saw Shigaraki deep inside crying like a little boy, just waiting for a hero to finally save him and free him from all his hatred. And then even Deku made it his goal to save him, so if Horikoshi is not trying to fool us by making us believe that Shigaraki can be saved, we should not lose focus on Toya. All For One understands the hero strategy that they are just trying to buy time until Endeavor is back. All For One has made it pretty clear that he can't stay in that place any longer because it's important for him to go to Shigaraki, which again we don't really know why he said that. Does he have to physically merge with Shigaraki, or However, thus the merging only happened on a mental level, so that All For One's actual body remains a mere lifeless remains. The important point is that All For One is definitely trying to escape this fight, not because he's too weak, but something to do with Shigaraki. Therefore, he tries to end it quickly. The fight continues and the heroes try to destroy his mask. And as we have also predicted in the last chapter review, which was pretty obvious, Jiro will eventually try to destroy the mask using her sound waves to break the glass. All For One as usual makes fun of the heroes, calling them side characters, extras. You know how he is, the good old All For One. Then he releases a huge attack that hits Hawks directly. He couldn't defend himself because he has hardly any feathers left and the mask is still not broken, so he can't waste any more feathers for his own defense. If he loses all his remaining feathers as well, he will be pretty useless in the remaining battle, because his feathers are what make up his quirk. He will even lose the ability to fly, which means that the moment he has no feathers left, he will be just a normal human. It will take at least 2 days for his feathers to grow back halfway. Considering how many feathers he has left, it's safe to say that it's as good as over for him, and the attack at the end of this chapter could thus be his last contribution to the war, unless he is somehow assisted by other heroes. Shortly after Hawks was hit, All For One also attacked Jiro. She was hit in the head and even lost one of her headphone jacks, so she literally lost 50% of her quirk with just this one hit. Of course, Eri should be able to get her back to normal, but she was definitely made 50% weaker for this battle. However, that doesn't stop her from using her heartbeat wall and hitting All For One with a direct attack. All For One, on the other hand, doesn't seem like this attack would have any effect on him at all, as it's just too weak. Thus he charges straight at Jiro through the sound waves, but is then suddenly held back by the will of the people whose quirk he stole. And now it becomes very interesting. We have to keep in mind that yesterday's translation of the leaks and the translation of the fan version are very different in relation to the following panel. So in order to have a final opinion, we have to take into account the official translation on Sunday. But anyway, All For One doesn't quite understand what is going on and wonders if this could be some sort of side effect of the New Order quirk. There are many possibilities here. One of them might even confirm our theory from a few months ago that Star and Stripe might have managed to change All For One's quirk. But let's start with why it might have nothing to do with the New Order quirk, and then I will explain why it might have something to do with it after all. In theory, what All For One assumed should make sense, because the rule that Star and Stripe set on New Order was that New Order will rebel against all other quirks. The reason for this was because the All For One quirk allows the user to use many quirks at once, which would have the effect that if All For One managed to steal New Order, that New Order will then rebel against all the quirks of All For One. We even saw all the quirks of All For One fighting against New Order almost as if they were protecting All For One, because All For One is also a quirk. But here the quirks attack All For One. It's fundamentally different. So the fact that the vestiges of all the quirks he stole are now trying to hold him back can't have anything to do with what New Order caused back in the fight against Star and Stripe. Also, neither is Shigaraki nor All For One in possession of the New Order quirk, and any effect that New Order might have caused should no longer be effective, since New Order destroyed itself to make it impossible for All For One to control it one day. With the destruction of New Order, all rules were automatically removed. In addition, Shigaraki and All For One share a common realm, because the All For One quirk works just like the One For All quirk, so that all previous users can share a realm with vestiges that have become part of the quirk factor. But what is significant here is that although All For One's vestige is part of Shigaraki's All For One quirk, All For One itself may have no connection to his own vestige. We can actually confirm this on the basis that All Might's vestige has a connection to All Might, so that everything that All Might knows also becomes part of the knowledge of his vestige in the One For All realm. But All Might itself does not know what his vestige experiences in the world of One For All, so it's a one-way connection. This means that whatever happens to a vestige cannot affect the real body. Furthermore, even if we assume that the effect is not directly related to All For One, but only to his quirk, which is why he could be affected himself, we have to keep in mind that All For One only has a copy of the original All For One quirk, and his copy was made before Shigaraki fought Star and Stripe. So what happened to the original All For One quirk should not refer to the copy, and therefore not to All For One. Unless there's something about his connection to Shigaraki that hasn't been revealed yet, which could explain why his copy is acting so strangely. And here's one thing we definitely need to mention. Those of you who have been following our channel for a while know that I really love My Hero Academia. But there's one small story arc that I have been very critical of. Though I have left my final opinion of the events that took place there open for the time being, in case this arc will show a deeper meaning later. Something we simply simply could not understand at the time, because this arc was so bad and so useless that I just couldn't believe it was that simple, and therefore I assumed that the effect of this arc would become relevant in the final arc of My Hero Academia, and that's exactly what could have possibly happened now. I am of course talking about the 6th chapter Star and Stripe arc. What was the point of that fight if we go back to the basis of what a story arc needs to be made of in order to be significant to the overall plot? The number one rule is that if you can skip a story arc without changing the story, then it's usually just unnecessary, and there's nothing worse than unnecessary story arcs. The only effect the Star and Stripe arc had was to give the heroes an extra week to train, which is terrible considering that the time it would take Shigaraki and All For One to reach their final form was entirely up to Horikoshi anyway. So if you wanted them to have more time, he could have just given them more time from the beginning, since the original time was mentioned literally a few chapters before the Star and Stripe arc, maybe even just one chapter before. If we consider that, then the story arc was completely and utterly useless. So useless in fact that I didn't believe Horikoshi. At the time I assumed that he was just trying to mislead us by making us think that the point was to give the heroes more time, but in reality he was just trying to distract us from the real purpose. We mentioned that the Star and Stripe arc might have something to do with the All For One quirk, a kind of change that All For One will notice that might occur in the final story arc, and seeing that All For One now mentions New Order in terms of what is happening with All For One gives me the feeling that I was right with my assumption at the time. Maybe this will even be the key to how Shigaraki will manage to free himself from All For One, since Star and Stripes not only destroyed the quirks, but also damaged the process of transformation, which is why the time for transformation has also extended to another week. It all depends on what exactly is happening with the All For One quirk at the moment. Maybe it really has something to do with how Shigaraki will manage to free himself from All For One, so that Deku can save him, and All For One is then forced to perform the transformation with Toya. So our old theory will fit very well with our new theory. Let's continue with the chapter. Hawks then revealed that he hit the same spot of All For One's mask several times to create a tiny crack so that he could finally destroy the mask with one final blow, and was successful. All For One's mask broke, mission complete. But what now? What does this mean? If the heroes are right about the All For One mask, then something big must happen in the next chapter, otherwise All For One will just die. As we explained in our last review, All For One theoretically has only one way to save himself from this situation, and that is to start the transformation with Shigaraki. However, we think it's too early, and then there's also the whole thing with Toya. This makes everything very problematic. But maybe All For One really does die, since his consciousness is mostly part of Shigaraki anyway, which would make no difference as long as the transformation is completed, which will then mean that Shigaraki can't be saved anymore. If that happens, then we need to rethink the importance Toya has in the remaining story. Toya definitely still has a big role in My Hero Academia. One thing is for sure, the next chapter could probably show in which direction All For One will develop with his transformation. Toya or Shigaraki? Let me know in the comments what you think of this new My Hero Academia chapter. If you like this video, please leave a like, it really helps us a lot. And if you want to see more My Hero Academia videos, then subscribe to our channel with the notification bell activated so you don't miss any of our new videos. We do weekly My Hero Academia reviews and sometimes theories. And don't forget to visit our second channel where we upload all kind of funny videos, like reactions. The link is in the comments. Thanks for watching and have a great day or night, whatever. See you next time. Bye bye.